And we're back, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast. It's episode 64. I'm your host, Christian Brindle. I am joined back again by my co-host, Glenn Shelton. Welcome back, good sir. Welcome back.
I just clicked. I don't know what's going on. I'm having some technical difficulties this morning, you guys. I don't know where. I don't know where I lost the visual of the actual stream. I know we're streaming. I know I can hear you.
I can see you and
I know.
myself and everything else in between. While you work that out, I'll introduce a little bit of the show this morning. Keep things moving forward, as they say. So for those of you that didn't catch yesterday's show, Glenn was not able to join, had a crazy situation with the travel, and I'll let him touch on it a little bit once he's able to kind of get the bugs worked out on his end. We did an awesome episode yesterday with Shauna over at Social Waves Media, friend of our company, friend of mine, friend of Glenn, friend of the podcast, everything else in between. So if you missed that episode and you like Facebook ads, you want to know more about Facebook ads, especially the current trajectory of Facebook ads and the current environment of Facebook ads and where things stand in the new algorithm updates and changes and things like that. Great episode all around. Highly recommend you go back and check that out. I had a thought kind of
preparing. Hey, really fast.
Yes.
I apologize to both you and anyone watching already. I'm going to jump out and jump back in. I was trying to resize the window and now it disappeared. So I'll be right back. One moment, everybody.
All right. So as we wait for Glenn to come back on the show, I had a thought, at how important this show is for us to bring to you on a daily basis. I've always made a very strong commitment to content for multitude of reasons, but particularly I've always had a soft spot for agents and trying to help them grow their business. And I don't know if anyone in our space has put out more content than I have over the years. And when we first set out to do this podcast at the beginning of the year, we made a commitment.
Yes.
Yeah. There we go. You're back. You're back. When we first set out to do this podcast at the beginning of the year, we made a commitment.
We did.
Unless it was 9/11 catastrophic proportions level of inconvenience, we would bring you a show. I'm leaving town today. As soon as the podcast is over, I have somewhere else I need to be. Glenn and I were both in Nashville, had some crazy travel during Nashville, and we did not miss a show. So I just wanted to kind of
whoa. Not only did we not miss a show, we did a bonus show this week.
Did a bonus show on Sunday.
You got a bonus show this week. 5 episodes.
3 of the 5 shows that were done this week were done in person in Nashville. So a little bit of a special treat there for those of you that are avid watchers. Yes. So, Glenn, talk to the people a little bit about your saga of the travel, because I know it was extremely messy.
It was, you guys. And I also want to take a second and really thank the community. You guys are awesome. There's so many times that Christian and I are doing this show, and it feels like I'm just on a Zoom call with him, and there is no one listening or watching this. So being in Nashville, being at the 7-Figure Playbook event, being able to talk to agents, which again, I love to do. I love to shake hands with you guys and spend some time with you and to hear how many of you are actually listening or watching the show on a pretty regular basis. And that you guys enjoy the content we put out. That means so much to me, and I know it means a lot to Christian too. So that was really, really cool to just interact with you guys, and great time there. But yeah, so what ended up happening, you guys, my flight got canceled. No idea why. Alaska Airlines canceled my flight, and so I was kind of scrambling
with a few hours notice, right?
Yeah. We were literally probably 2-3 hours from going to the airport, and then all of a sudden I got a message. As I'm figuring this out, I'm kind of in shock a little bit. The coffee I'm drinking, I dump it all. I literally dumped my coffee all over myself.
And I didn't know what was going on, so I immediately go into teasing and harassing. I'm like, look at this guy dropping coffee all over, and I don't know what's going on. And then after the fact, when I found out what was going on, I felt like a total jerk. I was like, I'm like, I'm an ass, as they say.
He's a jerk. He's so mean to me all the time. So then I'm scrambling, trying to figure out how can I still get home. End up having to catch a flight on a different airline, and I have a layover now. I'm going to Atlanta to get to Portland. It's kind of the opposite direction. Which, the other part of this too, I was thinking about today is I feel like when I was like 20, I could fly all around the world and I would bounce back the next day. But man, I just felt so tired from all that travel. I was just exhausted like all day. I don't know how you felt after all that travel, but
I was good. I feel like I probably travel a little bit more out of the two of us, so I might be a little bit more used to it. I haven't traveled as much this year. But like the last 2 or 3 years, I probably traveled, depending on the year, somewhere between 8 to 11 times or something like that. And so for me, I didn't feel that, but at the same time, I also didn't get back as late as you. You got back super late, right? Like, it was probably
almost 1 a.m, honestly, by the time I got back home, which again, for me, you guys, I go to bed around like 9 o'clock. We talked about this on the show before. I go to bed relatively early. So 1 a.m. is like staying up for 2 days straight, basically for me. So yeah, my equilibrium was definitely thrown off there.
Yeah. Well, we're glad to have you back on the show, and we have a fantastic topic for the people today. On episode 6. Should I be a rapper, ladies and gentlemen? In my once we are long and gone, I will need something to do to keep me busy. And alcoholism didn't seem like the best choice.
So you're gonna retire from insurance and become a rapper
at like 40?
Look at my gold chains.
8 figures. When I die, put my money in the grave.
Do you see it now? Do you see it now, Christian? Did I activate you? Are you activated?
Oh God.
Oh man.
Transitioning, if you will, into this episode's sponsor. Guys, this episode of the 7 Figures or Buzz podcast is brought to you by none other than Lead Heroes, which is on a commitment this week to save the Medicare supplement product, okay? And we're doing that by offering Medicare supplement leads at 50% off, right? $20 a lead. Glenn, when does this expire? I'm wanting to think like the end of Friday, but I'm having
end of Friday.
I'm having doubts about that.
Tomorrow. No, you're absolutely right. Tomorrow, our promotion for Medicare supplement leads from Lead Heroes will be over. So you have just over 24 hours to take advantage of this discount. Exclusive, call verified, double opt-in, FCC compliant Medicare supplement insurance leads. If you're looking for something to get you in front of more seniors to stay busy right now, this is one of the best ways you can do it. I have a video I'm going to try to get out today that I did in Nashville. I was using one of those cool vibe boards. I'm writing on it, and I was going through the math behind this promotion and how easy it is to have a positive ROI with a $20 exclusive Medicare supplement insurance lead. You essentially only have to sell one. You sell one lead out of 30. The minimum order is 30. And you've already made a positive ROI on this lead order. So do not wait. If you already purchased some, I'd recommend probably getting another order in, because this will go back to $40 per lead at the end of the day tomorrow. We'll have the link below this stream. Also, I'll mention too, Freebie Friday, you guys. We are giving away another 100 of these same exact exclusive Medicare supplement leads tomorrow, end of day. So that will also be happening. All you have to do is comment on one of the streams from this week. This is the 5th stream of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast this week. So everybody who commented on every stream, you can enter it in up to 5 times. We will be spinning that wheel 10 times, and we'll be giving away a total of 100 Medicare supplement insurance leads. So comment below, grab your Medicare supplement insurance leads from Lean Heroes before this promotion's over. You don't want to miss it. Trust me. You don't want to miss it.
Agreed. Topic today.
Yes.
Is what metrics you should be tracking in your business. The background on this topic, the two of us are sitting in the airport because we know we have a few more shows this week to finish off before you get on your plane boarded about 20-30 minutes before ours did. And we're sitting in the airport thinking, what should we talk about the remainder shows this week? And, we brought this topic up and it just seemed like there was a show that was starting right there, be like, oh yeah, that's a great one. There's this. It's like, okay, we got to save it for the show. And it seemed like such a viable topic, especially coming off of the event where, I feel like, and I've been here myself, I was getting better as time went on naturally. But then when the merger happened, I feel like that expedited, my ability to track things exponentially because I got to see how you do it. I got to see how, lead heroes and higher heroes did it, which, you guys were better at tracking data. I feel like than we were at ESI prior to the merger. And having a full year under our belt, really just having a lot of numbers at our fingertips has been really game changing. Like there's so many times you'll talk to someone in the business and they'll be like, I think I'm around here. Or I think I'm somewhere like this. So I think it's probably that, they likely are not that far off. It's not like they're saying it's here and it's here necessarily, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But they don't really know. And we see it all the time. Right.
Yep.
And it is kind of crazy to think about, like, your business is your livelihood. How can you not know with precision, those details of your business, like what your revenue is, what your net revenue is, what your monthly revenue is, where things are coming from, all of that stuff, what you're spending on different things, like what marketing is working like. It's glaring to me how many agents and people in our industry really don't have as good of a handle on that as they probably should.
Oh, absolutely. The other part of this equation too is how many different things you can track. And then it's, are you even tracking the right things? So, the majority of agency owners and agents though aren't tracking anything, in my opinion. I think that's mostly what we're seeing, right?
Very
when we're
little.
having these types of conversations. Then you have the next category, which would be people who are tracking potentially irrelevant or the wrong metrics or the wrong KPIs. So that's another potential issue. And then, how accurate is your data? How quick is this data being updated? Are you getting this every day, every week, every month? I mean, there's lots to this conversation. So I think there's a lot we can kind of get into here to hopefully illuminate, what you should be tracking in your business, in your agency, and, maybe change a few lives. Maybe we'll change a few lives on the pod today. That's not a new thing. We do that sometimes here on the pod.
Not an uncommon occurrence.
That's right. That's right.
So if there was, let's say, 2 to 3 things that you feel like has been a game changer on tracking either prior to the merger or maybe currently in the business, what do you feel like they would be? Like, what do you think are like the big 3? The Allen, Pearson, Garnett's of tracking. I don't know why I always go to those three. One ring, by the way, only one.
So if I had to pick my top three, so if someone came to me and said I'm only allowed to pick 3 metrics that I can track, it would be cost per acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
How much money are you spending to acquire that client, to get that policy issued? That's, in my opinion, CPA is probably like the number one metric, because closing percentage is irrelevant to CPA. Cost per lead is irrelevant to CPA. Your time spent working that lead is irrelevant to the CPA. So again, there's all these metrics around the actual sales process that you could be tracking, but ultimately that cost of the dollars and cents of what it took to get that person on the books, that, in my opinion, is one of the most important metrics that you should be tracking.
Mm-hmm.
And you should have an accurate and up-to-date number on it. If you're like, oh, it's somewhere around $300-400, I don't know, like, that's concerning, right? Like, you should have a good idea of what that metric is.
Right.
Number 2 would be the value of that client to your agency, to your business. And something, again, this came from the event we were just at this last week, and this has also always kind of been an ongoing debate in the industry, like, how much is that client worth to you? And the reality is, this isn't like a hard number. We always talk about this like it is a hard number. We always talk about this like everyone should be on the same page with what this lifetime client value number is. But there's so much variability to this number. And just to kind of cover a few of these variables right here with you guys, like, what type of client is this? Is this a dual client, right? Like a Medi client? Is this a Medicare supplement client? Is this a life insurance client, a final expense client? Is this someone that you plan on cross-selling 2 or 3 policies to? So the lifetime client value is going to be potentially anywhere from like $1,000 up to $2,000, or maybe even higher. So, and again, Christian and I have spent time looking at our own book of business and talking about lifetime client value. And even when we start to pick out like individual lifetime client value, it's wild. We have clients that have been on the books for, 10 years. Like, and if we're getting paid renewals and it's commissionable for 10 years, that lifetime client value is way over $2,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So to the people out there who often will be like, oh, that's bullshit, 1,500, that's way too high. No, it's not at all. Yeah. That's the sound of angry agents.
That's what we hear anyway. You might not sound that way to reality, but like, that's what I hear.
The lawnmower. The lawnmower struggling to kick over.
I think that one's such an interesting one too, right? I think both of those are such great ones, and I want to hear your third, but I wanted to kind of chime in a little bit on those. So, like, CPA, I would argue 90% of agents or more don't either know what it is, or they know what it is, but they don't track it. It's one of the two. There's probably a very small percentage of agents that are tracking it at all, which is crazy. At the end of the day, if you don't know what it costs you to generate a client, you're just throwing things at the wall and hoping things stick. So I think that allows you to, like, okay, once I have a favorable cost per acquisition that's scalable, then it's really a math equation. Okay, I can spend, let's say my cost per acquisition is $250. Well, I can spend $2,500 and I can walk away with 10 clients. It's essentially a foregone conclusion, right? A foregone conclusion. In terms of lifetime value of a client, we've talked about this a lot on pieces of content we've done together, and also a little bit on this show. But a lot of the big boys, they look at things based from a landscape of, they don't look at the first year commission. I feel like normal on their own agents look at street level commission. Agencies look at lifetime value. because they're looking at it they're playing a whole different game, right? So like
100%.
They will calculate what their lifetime value is on average, right? Some will fall off earlier, right? A year or two, maybe less. Some will go for 10 to 15 years, right? So like they try to figure out as well as they can what that average is going to end up being. And then every new client they bring in, whatever that lifetime value is, that is what is counted in terms of revenue that is brought into the business. And so again, it's a really, really, it's a very surgical way of really kind of calculating things and kind of, moving forward. And it allows you to really be like, okay, once we've got our sales systems dialed in, once we've got our marketing dialed in, our lead flow dialed in, and once we have these metrics dialed in, it's really just a point of hiring, scaling, duplicating, and spending more. And in theory, by nature, everything else should rise with it because we figured out these math equations, these simple math equations.
Yeah. See, and the thing is, agents get caught in tracking the wrong metrics here, especially with CPA. I think most agents are really focused on that CPL.
Yeah.
And especially when you look at like the marketers who are trying to hook agents, they're constantly like, they'll post like screenshots of like Facebook ad. They're trying to show like what the lead cost is from like the back end of a Facebook ad.
Facebook like, is paying me per lead.
Right, exactly.
I'm being paid 2 cents a lead. Wow, I'm under zero. How is that?
Exactly. And I was like, I just saw someone literally a couple of days ago. Someone, if I said the name, you would know. Most of you know this person. And they put a screenshot out, and they were talking about how they were generating leads at like $1.80 per lead, $2 per lead. And yes, that sounds great. Everyone would love a quality $2 lead. But the reality is, if you don't know what the CPA is, which is ultimately that cost per lead, and then how many leads are you actually able to convert, right? Then that $2 lead really means nothing. If it takes 100 leads to close one lead and you have a $200 CPA, that $2 CPL means nothing. That cost per lead really means nothing. And that's why the CPA is so important. And then on the flip side of that, this is the other thing I see a ton of is, oh, well, I'm closing like 40% of these leads, 30% of these leads. These are some of the best leads I've never had. These are the Glenn Ross leads. I've never had leads this good. This is unbelievable. Well, it's like, well, how much are those leads? Well, they're really expensive because they're so good. I'm paying $100 per lead. And that's like, well, if you're only closing 1 out of 3, your CPA is 300, per acquisition. That's really high, or higher than it should be potentially if you were doing something a little different. So that's the interesting part of that conversation is people get so lost in either closing percentage or they get so lost in the CPL that they completely miss out on what the actual CPA is. With hundreds of insurance agents and agency owners at the event, this could not be a better opportunity to spotlight your business. If you're looking for a sponsorship opportunity and where to spend your sponsorship dollars this year, the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit is the spot to do it. You can have your own booth. You can network with agents. This is the 4th annual summit, so there's going to be a lot of agents there and a lot of agents who are looking for help from vendors for leads, educational vendors. You could have a software tool. There's so many great vendors that we've had in the past, and we're looking at a lot of great opportunities for businesses to sponsor at the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit. So if you are looking for a sponsorship opportunity, make sure to check out 7figuresmedicareagentsummit.com.
Get your tickets today while they're still available and reach out about sponsorship opportunities. We'd love to have you involved with the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit in 2025. Now back to the show. I think CPA in particular is such an interesting conversation because every time we have this conversation, there are agents that don't spend money on their business in terms of marketing or leads or anything like that. And their business is 100% referral based. And they'll be like, they'll be like, but Glenn, my CPA is $0.
Yes.
Suck it. And you know what I mean? And like,
it's true though.
And you know what I mean?
Totally
And
true.
I feel like that sounds great on the surface, right?
Right.
But I talked about this at the event we just spoke at, right? Like you have all leads cost time or money, right? All business you acquire costs time or money, but you can't scale the time piece of it. You can scale the money of it. So like
correct.
Things that cost time or referrals or anything like that that provides you people coming into you. For the most part, there are some exceptions to that, people that really dial some things in with that, but usually that comes from spending money. It's usually doesn't come from spending no money. But by doing that and focusing solely on that, you don't have predictable lead flow. It's going to ebb and flow, right? And to really grow a big business, one thing I said was you need predictable lead flow. Like you can't build a 7-figure agency without predictable lead flow, and predictable comes from spending money on marketing where it's a set cost per lead. You have a set cost per acquisition. So like you're better off having a $200 to $250 CPA if it's predictable than having zero. And there's so many agents that don't get that and they can't wrap their minds around that. But again, you can't scale without predictability.
Yeah, I think this was really something that came again from the 7-figure playbook event, you guys, that was very clear. And this is something I've always believed in. It's that paid marketing, paid lead generation, buying leads, buying marketing is one of the fastest, most efficient way of scaling your business. I've always believed that. But, we have these 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure business owners, agency owners, people who've exited their company. They still have ownership in their company. They're still running their agencies, sharing these insights with not just the people in the room, but everyone who watched it. And it was very clear that was one of the big takeaways was that paid marketing and was what was really scalable. Because again, referral sources are great. Christian and I are huge fans of referrals. We get referrals all the time. We had hundreds of referrals last year from referral partners.
You want that.
Want that.
Let's not confuse the message, anybody that's watching, right? You definitely want that, but that can't be your business model alone if you want to really grow to as big as you can, because it's not
100%.
predictable.
100%.
And so, yeah, I think that's always an interesting thing, because anytime I've ever talked openly about cost per acquisition or any of these metrics, I always get that agent that's like, $0.
Yes. Yeah.
$0, Christian.
Yeah.
I bet yours is higher.
Yeah.
And it's
all the time. All the time.
My head is about to explode speaking to this person, because I'm like, I'm trying to explain to them that their $0 cost per acquisition is a bad thing.
It's like a governor on an engine. It's going to slow you from growing. Obviously, you're super efficient. You can drive an electric scooter and you can get up to 20 miles an hour, maybe 15 miles an hour, and you're not burning any gas, right? You're charging it at home on mom and dad's power bill, right? Or you can have a vehicle that could go 120 miles per hour, but you've got to put gas in it, and it's going to cost money, and you're going to grow a lot faster. You're going to go farther.
All of you listening to the show today, whether it be on replay or live, ask yourself this question. Would you rather be the person that has a $0 cost per acquisition and gains 60 to 100 clients a year? Or would you rather be the person that has a $200 cost per acquisition that gains 2,000 to 2,500 new clients a year?
Yep.
Which would you rather be? And I think anybody that really is paying attention would rather be the latter, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because it'll take person A essentially 20 years or more to match the 1-year production of option B, right? And that's because but they have a $0 cost per acquisition. Oh, you know, they're accomplishing in 1 year what it takes you 20 plus years to accomplish. And it's because you don't understand the importance of these metrics and spending money in your business and having predictable lead flow.
Let's transition to the next metric that I mentioned.
Yes,
so let's
yes,
talk
yes.
about lifetime client value. Well, we'll get to 3 in a second,
Okay.
because honestly, there's a few that I think 3 could be. I'm not even sure exactly what I would pick, because there's no doubt in my mind these are the top 2. These are the top 2 for sure. Lifetime client value and CPA. If you know these two, whether an independent agent or an agency owner, and you really know these two, you're gonna most likely do well. These are the 2 key metrics, and then we can kind of debate what the third next best one is. But with lifetime client value, to talk more about this, what would you say at Everything Senior Insurance, at ESI, our agency, what would you say our average lifetime client value, if you had to guess on a dollar amount? Again, I think we're probably higher than the industry average is what I would say. Yeah.
Totally. Because we have insane retention. We have really strong
98%.
retention.
Yeah, 98% last year, you guys.
Yeah, from 2024 to 2025, 97.5% retention rate on our MedSup and Medicare Advantage business, which is so good.
So good.
That's factoring in, death. You know what I mean? Like, there's things that are out of our control. There's nothing we can do about it, right? It's not like
we're keeping these beneficiaries alive. We have the healthiest book of business you guys have ever seen.
But I think, like, I think ours is probably closer to the 2000 range, because
yes, that's what I was going to say.
We're keeping clients so much longer. We also do a pretty good job attaching ancillary policies. We do a good job at that. Like, I was sitting in the event in Nashville, and I showed Glenn a text, like, several ancillary policies were sold just while we were sitting there.
Yes.
And so, like, I think all of those things contribute. But yeah, I think it's probably close to the I believe it's close to the $2,000 range, because we have long persistency. We also have good ancillary product focus.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going. I think we're very, very close to that $2,000 number. Again, it's tough when you have someone who's been a client on the books for 10 years, and technically you're talking about a lifetime client value now that's way over 2,000. And there is an argument to be made that you could say, well, some of these clients are generating well over $2,000 in lifetime client value, but you have to put a number on it where you're kind of taking an average, right? You're taking an average from some clients who might not be on the books as long. But yeah, our retention's incredible. That's another important part of this conversation. Maybe that's the third most important number, honestly, now that we're talking about this and thinking about this kind of out loud. Because with lifetime client value, if you have a really poor retention, that retention's going to crush the value of that client, right? If you're churning your book every 3, 4, 5 years, good luck with having a lifetime client value of 2,000 or more.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think I think that number is so important. Like, anytime I ever talk about retention, and to be fair, like, when in the early years of the Facebook group, I didn't really focus on it too much. I was more focused on, like, I'm like, you guys need to grow. You need to grow your business. You need to write more business. You need to grow your books. Like, that was really my message, and providing strategies on how to do that. I didn't talk as much about retention, because I'm like, I don't think people want to hear that. It's not sexy. But then I started realizing, I'm like, our retention rate is really strong. It always has been, because of the way we do business and the way we take care of our clients. And there's a lot of agents that really struggle with that. There's a lot of agents that, like, their lifetime value of a client might be $600 to $1,000, because they just have such a difficult time keeping that client. And man, that's a killer. That is such a killer. I mean, it sets
there's
you
a hole in the bottom
back.
of the boat. Yeah, there's a hole in the bottom of the boat, you guys. You're taking water on. You're bailing water out.
Yeah,
Makes it hard.
You are Jack not being able to fit on the piece of driftwood when there's clearly room. You went in the water, okay? You didn't come out because you met some harlot that didn't want you on the wood.
A Titanic reference on the pod. That might be a first, you guys.
There might need to be a whole pod on why Rose is a shithead. You know, I have very strong opinions about this, but
there's room, Jack. There's room. Come here.
There's room. There was
I'll
room.
pull you in.
There's so much with her. I could only begin to speculate how long this pod could go if we got into this.
You're visibly frustrated right now.
I'm passionate.
Very upset.
I'm passionate. I think there is Darth Vader, and then there is Rose in terms of movie villains.
Oh my gosh. That's too funny. Okay, so let's get back to that third metric though. So would you say, do you think retention would be the third most important? Is there another metric that you think might be a third most important metric for an agent or agency owner to track?
I think there's a lot of metrics that matter, but I don't know if there's any that, and we'll talk about them for sure. But I don't know if there's any that would fit better into that 3 spot than retention. Because I mean, that's insane not to know. You know, how many clients are you keeping versus losing? Like, how can you know where you're going without that? And if it's a lower number, you can try to really analyze it and look at it and be like, why are they leaving in such big bunches? Right? Like, what can I do to change my process to kind of hang on to people a little bit more? There is things you can do for sure.
Yeah.
And you know, so I think that number 3 has got to be retention. But if there were others in the running, you know, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, the ones that come to mind for me is like, you know, what's your revenue?
Yeah.
You know,
gross revenue.
What's your gross revenue? What's your net revenue?
Yeah.
What are you spending on what? There's a lot of you that are probably spending money. We were having a text exchange with some amazing agent partners of ours the other day. I thought it was really, really viable to this conversation. You know, like there's a lot of agents that are in like 8 different training groups. They're paying monthly for it. They're paying yearly for it, everything like that. And it's like, that might even exceed what they're spending on marketing.
Yeah.
On a monthly basis. Like if you had all that laid out for you and, you know, on a spreadsheet, you know, and, you know, you had bookkeepers kind of tracking that for you, how well would you be able to look at that and be like, I'm spending that on that? Well, that should go here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, I
mean,
think there's very few agents that are doing that.
Well, if you could simplify that into just like accurate bookkeeping, right?
Yeah.
That might even trump retention. And I was kind of thinking about that earlier too, but obviously
it's a tough one. Like those,
it is a tough one.
I wouldn't be mad at either one of those sliding into to number 3. You know, if it was a 3A, there might be a 3B, you know, in a sense, in any particular order. But that stuff really matters, you know, like, and having it categorized and everything like that. One of the best decisions I think that we made was bringing in bookkeepers, which was your idea, by the way. I was like, no, I'm like, they're going to cost us a lot, you know?
Exactly.
So, you know, I've been proven wrong on that front. And I'm very glad we have them because previously to us merging, I was our bookkeeper and it was not good. Yes. I was a lousy bookkeeper.
You are.
It was not good at all. So
you're the problematic agent we're talking about on this podcast today.
Unfortunately, I've come out of recovery though.
You have. I've had him in rehab for a while, you guys. Here's another metric that's kind of a newer metric I've heard some agency owners talk about, especially if you have agents selling over the phone or if you yourself are selling over the phone. Here's a metric that I like that is a runner-up, I think, for top 3 would be talk time.
Oh,
I think
yes.
you get a lot out of that metric. You can tell a lot if your conversations are really short. It's either it could be a marketing problem, it could be something the agent's saying. What is your intro? We were watching role plays this last week between agent and some of the speakers at the Seven Figure Playbook event, and some of these role plays, the agents were saying things, and immediately Chris and I turned to each other, and we both knew, like, immediately, like, what are you saying in your introduction? Like, what are you doing? Like, oh, hey, that's Joe. How's the weather over there? Whoa, what's going on this week? Got any fun plans? It's like, no, that's not what you say when you get someone on the phone. This is Jones. The reason for the call today is you responded to my assistant who spoke to you yesterday about the final expense burial policy, where it sounds like you need help covering those funeral costs. Do you have anything like that right now that would help cover your funeral costs? Just right into it. Holy shit. I'm 20 seconds into the call, and she's either going to hang up on me, or I'm right to the point where she's going to say, yeah, actually, you're right, Glenn. I did speak to someone yesterday about this, and I do need help. Or, oh, yeah, can you remind me? Tell me a little bit more about this. Like, some of you have the worst introductions I've ever heard in my life on the phone. I don't get it. What are you guys doing? Why are you saying the things you're saying on these intros? So, talk time. Tell me about talk time, though, Christian. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about talk time is you don't want it to be too low, because then it means you're not talking to people and you're not getting through to people. Like, you're either not getting people to answer, or you are not getting very far in these phone calls, right? You're like, it's ending quickly. At the same time, you don't want it to be too long either, because then you're talking up a storm about, if it's a really long, drawn out talk time, there's probably a lot of that talk time that's not about the appointment or what you're trying to accomplish, right? You're as Jordan Belfort says, you're going off into Pluto with them, like, when they were born in a log cabin in Alaska, and there was only, wolves and bears around. There weren't any people. They fished every day at the age of 2. Like, whatever the story is, and that's where the spoon collection started. Like,
yes,
whatever it is, I really believe there's a balance with talk time. So you want it to be enough talk time, but not maybe too much talk time, I guess. Like, and so, like, for me, I was always such a big believer, especially when I switched to telesales, that, like, there's a magic number of how long I want that phone call to go if I don't write the app, and there's a magic number I want it to go if I do write the app. And the numbers are dramatically different. If I do write the app, if I can wrap the whole thing up in an hour, I'm thrilled about that. And many times I could. Because, you have to go through the presentation, sales process, whatever the case might be. Then the application itself, takes some time. But if I can get that done in an hour or less, I'm thrilled with that. If it's a conversation where I'm not going to make a sale, if I can get through that in 10 minutes or less, I'm thrilled about that. So those were my 2 numbers. That was kind of my goal. And so
I like that.
I think talk time is hugely important.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it's too much, like, you could be, kicking the can around with a prospect that either will never buy from you or doesn't qualify. And that's a waste of time too.
I know some of the call center owners that I've worked with through Lead Heroes, and talk time's a big metric for them, obviously, because that's a really great way to help manage agents for a lot of the reasons you just said. If someone's consistently having 2-hour calls to write an application, there's too much in there. Yeah. You should not have to average 2 hours. Now, mind you, not saying that there might be some calls where, for whatever reason, take 2 hours. If it's but it should be the exception, not the rule. I think the average agent can start and can start a conversation with a lead and then finish and write the application with that lead within, I'd say, an average of 45 minutes to maybe 90 minutes, an hour average would probably maybe a little over an hour average. So I think it's really helpful from a management side, again, as an agency owner, call center owner. If you had that data, I think it can help and tell you a lot. There's a couple comments here on the stream that I wanted to get to, you guys. I appreciate those of you who are watching right now and commenting live. Shout out to Mr. Joe Campert. He said, I'm commenting to enter into the giveaway. I've never won. Joe, this could be your week. Freebie Friday is tomorrow, Joe. I would love nothing more than for you to help save Medicare Supplement. I would generate maybe an extra couple leads for you, Joe. And just so you can really help us save Medicare Supplement insurance. So guys, comment. Again, we'll get you some free leads if you win. Now here's the other one that was really interesting from Trent. Maybe not in the top 3, but I struggle to find anyone tracking TTM trailing 12-month returns on investment leads usually, since we're primarily being paid in advance on commission with chargebacks as a possibility through the 9 to 12 month cycle, but often buy in a one-time investment, and then keeps kind of going. But this is really an interesting comment, Trent. I appreciate you sharing this, because I would say that I think a lot of agents are only tracking kind of that immediate close, right?
Right.
So they get 50 leads, they close 5 of them, they count it as 10%, and then they kind of close that and they move on. Even when more leads are potentially going to get closed down the road, right? Someone they called, maybe they left a message, maybe they presented to someone and they said, I'll get back to you next month. And then on the flip side, like Trent was saying, what about people that you closed, but then they fell off in month 5, 6, or 7? That also potentially affects your numbers. I will say, shout out to Jeff Root. I know he is one of the goats at some of this metric tracking, KPI tracking. That's part of the reason why I think he's as successful as he has been, is because he's always had a really good feel for his numbers. But this was something
we should get Jeff.
Oh my gosh, I'd love that. Yes, Jeff,
make it happen, on
Glenn. I will.
It's your job.
Jeff's gonna be on here. It's my job. I'm gonna get you, Jeff. I'm gonna get you, Jeff. I'm coming, Jeff. Say that into the microphone so Jeff could hear. But I've specifically had conversations with him around this exact topic, where he talks about a lot of times when they're doing a lead, either a lead order or marketing that they're doing internally, yada, yada, etc. They're a lot of times not even starting this calculation until 90 days after the fact. Because again, they're looking more at it from a TTM point of view, a trailing 12-month point of view. So I do think if you're not looking at this from a longevity standpoint, if you're not putting some time into it, you're probably missing out, or your data is not going to be super accurate. The more accurate your data is, and the more you're accounting for stuff like this, the better decision making you can have. Again, data-driven decision making is really what makes someone a successful business owner, in my opinion.
Totally agree. Yeah. I mean, I think, and I want to start to move to final thoughts. I know there's a lot more that we can talk about with this, but I feel like without data, you can't know what's working. You can't know how well you're really doing. You can't know how profitable you are. You can't know how well you're doing with your clients, any of the above, right? It's everything. It's almost like, if we use a sports analogy, it's almost like you have players, NBA players, and their stats are very important, right? Like their field goal percentage, their 3-point percentage, their free throw percentage, their rebounds, their assists. But let's say they just stopped tracking anything, and it was all by memory. Like, I remember this guy seemed pretty good. I
thought the NBA wouldn't make it into today's pod, but here we go. He snuck it in, you guys. He snuck it in. Here we go.
So we always have those players, right? Like the Jordan Crawfords of the world. Not Jamal, Jordan, that they'll shoot every time they get the ball, or the Michael Porter Juniors of the world. So like if you're just watching a game and there's no stats or anything like that, you don't know anything, like you might think that the best guy on the court because you don't have stats.
100%.
And then you look at the field goal percentage, you're like, my goodness, like chucker, no assists, you don't pass the ball, right? Like, so yeah, I think it's kind of like that. It's kind of like trying to determine who a team's best option is offensively without any numbers or stats or anything like that. Like how can you possibly know what your best game plan is? And same goes with your business.
I totally agree with you. And I'll kind of jump into my final thoughts, you guys. So one is Medicare supplement leads at Lead Heroes. They go back up to $40 per lead end of day tomorrow. Yes. So I just want to take a second, reiterate this: $20 per lead, minimum order of 30 leads. That's a $600 order to get 30 exclusive call verified double opt-in Medicare supplement insurance leads from Lead Heroes. Take advantage of this discount while you still can, because it goes back up to $40 per lead end of day tomorrow. So I really, really, really liked that sports analogy because it can be super subjective. If you just watch one game, a player might have a good game.
Yeah,
you might watch a player, like
Jalen Green. There's no player with better highlights than Jalen Green. I saw one come up on my Instagram the other day. I'm like, man, that dude's bad. And then I look at like in a good way, like slang.
Yeah,
bad like slang.
Oh,
like the kids do, like the young children do. I don't even know if that's really slang. But like, I'm like, that's a bad man right there. It's like these flashy highlights. I'm like, this dude's a monster. Then you look at his numbers. I'm like, 18 a game. Turns the ball over a lot.
Not
the best player on his team.
Exactly.
But like you look at an Instagram highlight, compilation of him just wrecking people, like step back threes, crossing people over, dunking on people. I'm like, the numbers matter.
It also goes the other way too. So you could watch a player like Kyrie Irving, who historically is statistically, great, but then he might have a bad game. He might only shoot, 3 for 27, whatever.
Right. And like I've heard like past and current NBA players say things like Kyrie Irving's like a top 15 player ever. Obviously, that's not the case. That's ridiculous. That's insane. And that's because
you don't think Kyrie's top 15?
No, I don't think anyone does.
I think Kyrie could be potentially top 15.
All right, this is a podcast in of itself. Okay, no MVPs or any individual awards.
Oh no!
Not even 20,000 points scored. Like he has no resume. He has one ring and a couple All-Star games, and that's about it. Like, but you watch him play, he has the visual game of a top 15 player, but his impact on winning is not that.
What if it's a supporting cast? What if it's a supporting cast problem? What if he just hasn't had the cast?
He played with LeBron, Kevin Durant, Luka.
That Nets team, that Nets team should have won a ring.
Yeah, and that team had Durant, Kyrie, and Harden. Like he has not had a problem with supporting cast. He played in Boston with Tatum, Jaylen Brown. That team was stacked.
Oh man, that's true. I forgot about that Celtics team.
Like, and he won one ring with LeBron, and LeBron was the best player on the team. Like, there's nothing there. But like,
ooh.
But no, I'm saying
I'm sorry, Kyrie. I'm gonna apologize.
He's a great player, Hall of Fame player.
He is.
But like visually, he has the game of a top 15 player.
Right.
But stats wise and resume wise, like I was listening to a podcast about him. It was like in the playoffs last year, everyone was like, "Oh, Kyrie's killing it." When they made it to the finals, it's like, but he averaged 22 a game. People are acting like he averaged 32 a game.
Well, and again, he'll have anomalies where he'll drop 40, 50, 60-point games, right? Like Kyrie's done it. And so that's part of the reason why I think this conversation happens the way it does. And a lot of it, though, is visually. I think a lot of it is the announcers can say stuff. You've got the highlight. You know, and again, to bring this back to the metrics conversation, right? The metrics conversation is, we can be, as business owners, we can be super subjective to things that are going on in our business. I have done this personally many, many, many times over the years.
Yep, me
where
too.
I think something's going on based on either a recent event or my own bias. And when I look at the actual data, I am completely wrong with what I'm thinking. So I've almost gotten to the point now where I try to not have a super, like a strong opinion. I try to not really have an opinion until I can see the numbers, till I can see the data, because I don't want to have a subjective opinion. I want something that's really objective. I want something that's data-based. I want to create opinions around the data where I'm like, okay, well, this tells us that this is working. This tells us that this isn't working. Because if you're just like, oh yeah, that was a great lead, and you don't really look at the numbers, like, who cares what your feelings are? You know, nobody cares what your feelings are around, you know, data-driven decision making. It should be objective. It should be about the numbers. So those are my final thoughts, you guys. I thought this was a really great episode. I think there's so much more potential that we could even talk about with metrics.
Could be a part 2 at some point.
Could be a part 2. Could be a part 2.
Guys, my final thoughts are, you know, I think, you know, Glenn hit it right on the head there. Like, you need to be, you need to be analytical and not emotional when making decisions in your business. Sometimes that's easier said than done, right? Because there's a lot of emotion that goes into your business. You have a lot of emotional feelings about your business. It's like your child. You know, I always joke and say the company is my firstborn, you know, and kind of in a way that it is. But at the end of the day, right, like, in order for it to really do well and do as well as possible, you have to make really concise, analytical decisions, and make decisions not with emotion, but based on what's going to make the most sense and what's going to be the best for the business. Too many agents, I feel like, and business owners in general, they do the opposite. Every decision is emotional. You know, this makes me feel good. Makes me feel good to send out this direct mail campaign where I'm getting 2 leads back. You know, it feels like I'm doing something.
Yes, exactly.
Makes me 100%. Feel good to be on 8 trainings where I don't log on to any of them and I'm paying monthly. You know, makes me feel like I'm making progress, you know, but like, not good.
No.
So I think data's good. I think, you know, we went into the weeds, I think, on a lot of very important metrics you should be tracking in your business. And, you know, you'll learn the best ways to do it as you go. It doesn't mean you have to have it totally figured out on the best ways to do that. But I think starting to take the step on implementing those things can be positive. Thank you guys for watching this week. Comment for Freebie Friday, comment #Team Replay on any platform that allows you to do so. If you're watching on a platform that allows you to like, comment, subscribe, we would certainly appreciate it. We'll be back next week with another pod, fresh Monday morning, and we wish you guys nothing but massive success. Thanks, everybody.